First one I thought of, because I just thought it was very appropriate for Mary Ellen. And the Beatitudes are the blessings that Jesus, taught from the Sermon on the Mount. And all of you are familiar with them, the blessed are the poor, and for they shall be loved. But I just wanted to, some of the verbiage that was in it, I was curious what it meant, like, blessed are the meek, blessed are the poor in spirit. And so when I read about what these really meant, the poor in spirit, it really wasn't like, people devoid of spirit or whatever, but it was more that they were humble and acknowledging their need for divine help. And blessed are the meek, that is more of a, the meaning behind that is more that they're kind and gentle. So I'll just read the Beatitudes, and again from the Gospel of Matthew. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are they who mourn, for they shall be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. Blessed are they who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be satisfied. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. And blessed are they who are persecuted for the sake of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. I feel like these are all virtues that describe Mary Ellen, and I feel like her place is very secure in heaven. And when I think of Mary Ellen, I think that I'd be very pleased when I grow up if I could be like Mary Ellen. I felt like she is somebody who made a positive difference in the lives of other people. She embraced life, the good and the challenges, with joy, integrity, and courage. She demonstrated grace and decency through her career and the things she did for others as a speech counselor, her kindness, her character, and by her example. I was actually stunned to learn from Mary Ellen's obituary that she was only married 7 years, because I felt like Mary Ellen was just such a lifelong presence and influence. And her obituary, as you all know, indicates that when she was 15, she contracted polio at the height of the epidemic in 1952. And that was the worst outbreak in the nation's history, leading to several thousands of dead and paralyzing thousands of more. And when you read about polio, it's a virus. But I just thought it probably was far more prevalent than it actually was. That it was really, a lot of people who had polio never exhibited any symptoms. Only a small percentage experienced mild symptoms, and a very small percentage ever experienced what Mary Ellen did, which was paralysis. And soon after that, a vaccine became widely available in 1955, and today it's almost eradicated. And I just think, why Mary Ellen? But I do think, though, that probably her strength and character were no doubt shaped by her experiences. When Mary Ellen visited me one time in Duluth, she came to pick me up in her large Mary Ellen mobile, and we went down to a restaurant, Pickwick, and when we drove up, there was one handicapped space, and somebody was in it who didn't have a handicapped sticker. And I was just so embarrassed. I was embarrassed that we didn't more broadly, show the compassion to have more handicapped spaces, and that somebody had parked there, and I was going to go in. I said, let me out. I'm going to go in and find them. They're going to come out and move this, because for Mary Ellen, it was so hard to find a place to park and then get into the restaurant. And Mary Ellen really would have none of it. She just, she just wanted to be like everybody else, and she was independent. She said, no, this is just fine. And we went and parked, and we had to go a long way around. But again, I think that in spite of her disability, maybe because of it, Mary Ellen demonstrated a generous and forgiving spirit, determination, independence, spunk, grace, and compassion. And as I say, when I grow up, I hope I can be just like Mary Ellen. So, hopefully others of you all have got some memories of your own.
Jane, I'm going to read. Jane, come up here.
She can't see you
Right
there.
Right there.
We can't see you. Okay, Bud sat down and wrote a letter to Chris, Pat, and Bill, and then their families. And he was telling them, you know, that, well, here, I'll just read part of this. With great sadness, we heard of your mother's passing. And we had heard earlier that she was in the hospital and that she realized that this was going to be a real test. Knowing Mary Ellen, we knew that she accepted this, as she's always accepted any challenge in her life. We saw her just a little over a year ago, and your Bud mentions too that we got to see her in her new home. She had just moved from out in the country. And she had just moved into her new home, and Christine and Mary Ellen and Debbie, they all had different homes, and they were switching furniture. Well, this fits here in my home. No, my house is too small. I can only handle this piece of furniture. Why don't you take this? And they were just switching all over the place. And I mean, they just got along so well. And Mary Ellen just always went with the flow. And I think maybe most of you have seen her letter, her last Christmas letter. I just returned from church, filled with such gratitude for the beautiful surroundings. The incredible music, the loving friends in the congregation, children bringing the gifts to the altar, the sure knowledge that God has been bringing me through my life. With incredible blessings, my heart is full. Anyway, I had told Rosemary about this letter, and she had gotten one too at Christmas, and she said, I'm going to dig it out and reread it. So Rosemary wrote back here just last week, and she said, I dug out the letter and looked at it and was very touched by what she had to say. I even wrote to her priest and quoted the paragraph. I just thought that he and the community should know how she felt about going to church there, and that it was a glimpse of her soul. He wrote back and thanked me and said that he had talked with her quite a bit recently, and that she was in a very good place spiritually. And I think she is. I think she always has been.
I'll try to read mine. Mary Ellen will walk again someday. From her obituary, she was in a wheelchair for 60 years plus. Sometimes after Jerry and Mary Ellen were married, I remember hearing that Mary Ellen was determined to walk. Jane remembers after the birth of Christine, Mary Ellen said she would never be able to walk again. What occurred to me after Mary Ellen's passing, she will walk again. In our last days, at the end of the world, one of the events that we will know about is the resurrection of our bodies, as revealed in the Bible and what we profess in the Apostle Creed. The statement in the Bible states that the dead will rise incorruptible and shall change. Mary will walk again on the last day in a whole body. That's all I have.
Thank you.
I have the letters, the Christmas letters from Mary Ellen. Mine go back years, but I wanted to read the last paragraph from the last letter, Christmas letter that I received from her, just so everybody knows. I don't know how this woman did it, kept up with her own schedule, because I couldn't keep up with her schedule. So she writes in her last paragraph here, I had a good year attending monthly luncheons with 4 groups of ladies, the Red Hats, the Solitaires, which are the single gals, church ladies, and Chat and Chew, former neighbors from my years in the country. I also worked on the St. Edward Tea Committee as ticket and seating chair. That was a challenge. I saw 2 theatrical performances. An all-female cast presented the play in 1976 at the Tower Theater in Bend in July. It was wonderful. I was brought to tears near the end when an actress gave a powerful speech that brought the house down. Closer to home, in fact, 2 blocks away on Village Green, there was an outdoor performance of Shakespeare's play, The Tempest. It was ambitious, but hard to hear dialogue, especially Shakespeare's language outdoors. Fall quarter, I attended Lunch and Learn for an hour every Wednesday for 6 weeks at the library. Every Tuesday, I ride the bus to senior lunch. I still put out the monthly newsletter. To me, it's kind of like scrapbooking. I find information I want to include, cut cartoons out of the Saturday Evening Post. It still comes out 6 times a year. Download jokes and other information from my computer and churn out 6 to 8 pages. There's one more bit of news I want to report. I won 3rd place in the Halloween costume contest at senior lunch. I dressed as a clown. What else? So if anybody saw, though, that Facebook picture of Mary Ellen dressed in the clown, it was pretty funny. And the only clown that I will ever love in my whole life. But I just wanted to close with one quick story. It's probably about 10 years ago. I was in another sales position in another job, and I traveled around Minnesota and to different stores. And I was down in Faribault, Minnesota, which is probably about an hour and a half south of here, and a long way from Wadena, though. 3 hours away from Wadena, Minnesota. And I walked in and I introduced myself, and the gal behind the counter, it's a retail store, they sold draperies and wall covering, and she asked me if I knew Mary Ellen Kaludgy. And I said, yes, I do. She's my aunt. And it was almost like this woman just glowed as she spoke of Mary Ellen and how much Mary Ellen impacted her life because of the work that Mary Ellen did with her kids. And, it just amazed me, like, listening to this woman, again, and her emotion and her happiness. Like, she just smiled the entire time she spoke of Mary Ellen. And, just how Mary Ellen affected people's lives.